Brandon, you were drafted by the San Francisco 49ers in the fourth round back in 2003. You spent 11 seasons in the National Football League. When you got the call from the 49ers, what was that moment like for you, given the fact that this was your dream that goes all the way back to childhood when you were getting sent to the principal's office for not picking something else?
Yes, it was definitely fulfilling in the sense that the opportunity was materializing, but in reality, it was very upsetting because I was projected to go a lot higher. So I was projected to go in the first three rounds, second or third round, and I ended up dropping into the second day into the fourth round. And in reality, the only person happy in the NFL draft is the first overall pick. Everyone else thinks they should have been drafted higher. And I'm no exception. I wasn't saying I was thinking I was going to be number one, but I was hoping that I was going to be a lot higher. And that's just more for, that initial financial reward that comes with being drafted higher. But in reality, once I got to the team, it didn't matter. I had a chip on my shoulder. And I tend to lean more towards the later round draft picks because of that. I had to earn it. I got on that team. I needed to earn it. I needed to earn my place. I needed to prove that I belong. I needed to play special teams. I need to play in the preseason. It really put all that I was building from little leagues to high school to the test. Like all that separating myself, that didn't mean anything when it came to getting on that roster for that first time. It was just all about the effort and what I can put into it.
In 2010, you're with the Denver Broncos. You led the entire NFL in receiving yards with nearly 1,500 yards, 11 receiving touchdowns. And Brandon, you're on a team that was 4-12, finished last in the AFC West, and your two quarterbacks were Kyle Orton and Tim Tebow. Given the years that you had before, like, why was that season like so successful? Like, what was it like, mind, body, and soul, that just elevated your game to that level?
Yeah, that 2010 season was what I call the point where effort and opportunity meet. I've always considered myself a high effort individual, and all I really needed was an opportunity to be put on that platform, given that platform to showcase my talent. And playing with Kyle Orton in Chicago in 2008, when he was transferred to the Broncos in the Jay Cutler swap. That year I actually thought I was done playing in the NFL. I had tore my PCL with the Chicago Bears. I was gathering my transcripts from the University of Illinois. I was already in Illinois, so I was just going to stay in Lake Forest and finish my undergraduate. I was lining up a role at the Big Ten Network. And the Big Ten Network was like, hold on. We don't know. Like, how about give us a call in August? And we'll circle around in August and we'll see if this really is going to materialize. We don't want to start creating material around you and then you turn around and go back to the NFL. I'm like, I promise, I'm done. They're like, no. And, it was the all-season drug on. And my sports agent actually called me and was like, hey, I think this is it for you. No teams are calling. And I was like, all right. So I was actually moving on in 2008. And Kyle Orton called me in July. And it's like, hey, man, I'm not really that happy with what's going on with the receivers out here. What kind of shape you in? And I'm like, I'm doing some Olympic lifting with my dentist. He's a big Russian Jewish guy. He's an amateur triathlete, big old legs, big old trunk, and this huge guy. I'm like, so I'm powerlifting with him. I'm playing basketball with the hip hop community on the South Side in the country club out there. I'm rock climbing with my neighbors in Lake Forest here, indoor rock climbing puzzle. And these people are all chefs, so we're like eating charcuterie plates and drinking wine while we're doing these rock climbing puzzles. So I'm in this I'm like, man, I'm all right. I'm in good shape. So Josh McDaniels calls and is like, hey, man, do you remember I ran your pro day at Illinois? with the New England Patriots. I was like, I don't remember. He's like, yeah. He's like, I wanted to draft you, but Bill just didn't want to draft you. He's like, you just didn't fit. And he says, man, if you can come out here and play anything remotely like you were playing at that time point, he's like, you'll be all pro. And so I flew out for a workout, lit it up. They brought me on. I didn't play at all in that 2009 season when I was with the Broncos the first year. And the players stayed remarkably healthy. None of the receivers got injured. And it wasn't until the end of the season when two of the receivers faked injuries to where I got put in for the last two games of the 2009 season. I played really well in those last two games. Brandon Marshall was traded away. They didn't bring back Stokely. And then I was put into the starting receiver role in 2010. And that was the first time where I had an offensive coordinator say to me, hey, man, I'm going to feature you. We're going to throw you the ball. And then they turn around and do it. And it was just the cerebral type of offense that I've always wanted to play. 3-4 passing options per play, hand signals. I was incorporated into the game planning. There was routes specifically for double, triple moves, big posts and go routes and fades. And Kyle Orton can throw all the different types of balls. He was a pure just gunslinger. He wanted to throw the ball. He'd be on the side. He was on the sideline one time. He's like, man, I don't feel comfortable if I don't throw 3 or 4 interceptions in a game. It's like I'm not even trying, right? It's like he just wanted to throw the ball. So we got in these games, we're throwing 50 times a game. And yeah, being on a team with only 4 wins, it was tough to celebrate. It was tough to really be excited for what was happening, because I saw it happening, the entire season, because the media would come up to me and was kind of like, hey, man, it's the 4th game of the season. You've already got half as many yards as your biggest season in the NFL. And it's kind of like, uh, 6 games into the season, man, you got more yards than you've ever had in your entire career in one season. So it's like, these things were happening, but the team wasn't performing so well, so it just made it tough to celebrate. But just in my circles with the sports agent, with my family and my friends who are really celebrating the opportunity to really put my talent on that platform and then be up there with the elite receivers. So it was just it was rewarding. It was humbling to be able to compete up there and show that statistically I'm the best. And I've always been this good. I just needed an opportunity, so it was good. It was just really thankful for Kyle for choosing to throw the ball to me, and Josh McDaniels for running plays and calling my number.
I love the mantra that you had for that effort and opportunity, because you got to give your max effort, but it does come down to opportunity. I mean, there are probably thousands of athletes where the effort's there, the skill's there, everything's there, but the opportunity never comes to showcase it. And that's the key piece. Because I think, at least for me growing up as a hockey player, there's a lot of frustration because the effort was always there, but the opportunity mostly never really arrived. And I remember, it's kind of powerful, but what you're saying right now, because that's kind of what my dad would tell me, and my coach would be like, hey, you got to get the opportunity. And if the opportunity doesn't come, just remember that it's not a reflection on who you are and the work that you've put in. But that's a tough pill to swallow, and it takes a long time to separate the two.
Yeah, but you have to remember, Josh McDaniels brought George Karl in to speak to us in the 2008 and the 2009 season. And that was one of his big frustrations, was the players that he had on the team at the time, Carmelo Anthony and J.R. Smith, and what he was dealing with Allen Iverson prior to that, was that they effort was a switch for them. They would turn it on and off, and it's not a switch. Effort is like an athletic ability. It's always on and always on display. And I remember hearing that. I was like, wow, like that really resonated with me. That exactly was what my coaches, when I was in high school, that's what they said to me. Like, Brandon, you got to redirect your energy. You got to redirect your energy. I had all this pent up energy, and I didn't know the plays, and I couldn't remember the plays, and I was getting mad, and I was getting frustrated. And like, redirect your energy. Once you learn your plays, you start studying X's and O's. Then that's when the fun happens. And so it's just like, that effort was a switch for me when I was in high school. It was like, all right, now effort never turns off. All I'm waiting for is opportunities, and that's just a valuable lesson.
That's powerful, man. That the effort switch always stays on, and then all you're doing is just hunting down that opportunity. I love that. I guess to kind of wrap things up, dude. A couple years later, you retired from the National Football League, and I kind of want to understand the psyche behind that, because I know sometimes it just happens. Sometimes it's maybe a little bit forced. Why did you retire from the NFL?
Yeah, I always tell people old age. They laugh that, right?
They're like 32
Like,
isn't
come
old,
on,
or however old
come
you
on.
are.
It's old in that industry, right? And it just reached a point for me where I didn't have the energy to go into another organization and pretend like there's a competition. I know I'm better. I know I'm the best. I don't want to pretend to. I don't want to go in an organization and pretend like I shouldn't be getting more targets. When in reality, what it is that I'd be making too much money, and they'd prefer to have two or three rookies doing, you know, playing for the value of my contract. When they would play special teams, they'd run through a brick wall. They'd do anything for the organization. When I wouldn't, I'm just a specialty outside wide receiver, right? That's just difficult to quantify that on the balance sheet of a football organization. And so, the old age factors in. I think I was also just ready to move on. You know, it happened. There's always just this balance where it's like I still have a lot left in the tank. That's what we all feel like when we're retiring. It's like, I still got a lot left in the tank. But at the same time, a large part of me was like, man, it's time to move on. I need to, my last 5 years in the NFL, I had been working in aerospace sales. So I already had foresight that the end was near. And I'd been preparing myself to enter into the corporate world by accepting a role in aerospace sales. And so, I already had an account. I was working the accounts with SpaceX and Boeing. That I was working the F-35 project with subcontractors in Southern California. I was studying under a metallurgist in the off season. And so I had this like incredible opportunity where I was really developing myself as a businessman. And so the decision wasn't as hard for me. Ego wise, it was very hard. It was a loss of life. It was loss of identity. And like Marcellus Wallace says in Pulp Fiction, that's just your ego fucking with you, right? That's not reality. So I needed to detach myself from that identity as a football player. And that was just with a lot of self-help books, Eckhart Tolle, talk therapy, that was hypnotherapy. I sit with the shaman. It's just like a lot of work with my advisors, my mentors, with my sponsors. So it's just like really figuring out what I want to do with myself, putting that plan together on what it looks like for me, repairing my relationships with my children, with my siblings. Spending 11 years in the NFL, I isolated myself. I intentionally isolated myself so that I can focus on that and give that all of my attention and effort. And so just like post NFL was like, I just needed to repair all those relationships, figure out what I'm going to do so I'm not chewing up the the corners of the wall. and so I can be in a healthy place to where I can be present for my children, present for my family and friends, and then move forward in this world in a fulfilling way that's fulfilling for me.
I love how you move through that. I mean, you're mourning a part of yourself that it takes. I mean, it's a part of you has moved on, and you need to take the time and attention to mourn it, because I think that's the space for many athletes where it becomes that area where you either sink or swim, and it becomes this, kind of gray area. But I think that's so wise and smart of you to take the opportunity to dive into books, dive into therapy, dive into some spirituality to kind of get that all dialed in. That's powerful, man.
Yeah, it was like, I had to look in the mirror and say, "B. Lloyd, thank you for that. That was awesome. That was a hell of a ride. Thank you for all that came along with that. But I no longer need you anymore. I need to find another identity. I need to be Brandon Lloyd moving forward." And so all that was great. And I love the journey, and all the individuals and all those lessons are still with me. They're just not, I am just not that anymore.